Good morning, CSL Midtown. I'm Reverend Cynthia Paulsen, and I am speaking to you today all the way from Oregon. Most of you know that last month, my husband Gary and I made this huge life change, and we sold our house in Rome, Georgia, which is outside of Atlanta, where it's been, about 100 degrees these days. And we moved all the way across the country to Brookings, Oregon, where I think it's in the mid 60s usually. So if you're not familiar with it, Brookings is this little beautiful oceanside community on the southernmost coast of Oregon. So it's very different than where we were before. So we experienced this move, this big change, more than just the weather. And lo and behold, the theme and topics for this month are all about navigating change. So I knew I would have a lot to contribute and talk about with this conversation. Now, I'm a spiritual person, I'm a minister and a practitioner, and I couldn't help but think about, from a spiritual perspective, what helped us, what helped me get through this big adjustment. Now, the title of my talk is Navigating Change with Joy. So you would suspect that I'm going to give a talk about joy, the wonderful spiritual principle that we can all use. And yes, I'm going to talk about that a little bit later on. But when I say navigating change with joy, I actually mean Joy, our dog. We have a 1-year-old Jack Russell puppy named Joy, and we made the 6-day journey across the country with her by our side. And we have a photo right there. Thank you. Um, Really, I think she was on top of us more than by our side. So, but if you saw the center's Facebook post about today's service, you know the subtitle of my talk is How a Jack Russell Taught Me Spiritual Principle with regard to navigating this big change. Joy really did teach me a lot. Now, I think we all know that in general, we can learn a lot from dogs, right? Dogs are the best. Beyond the obvious things that they demonstrate, like loyalty and unconditional love, I learned so much spiritually from this dog's behavior on this trip across the country. Now, as I mentioned, Joy is still a puppy. She's only one, and she is, let's see, how should I put this? Barely trained? Barely? She is a Jack Russell after all, so it takes a long time to get a handle on a Jack Russell. So, a lot of planning went into making this trip with her because we didn't know how she was going to respond. Dogs can freak out when they experience a big change in their life, just like people can. And the vet warned us about a thing called moving anxiety. Dogs don't like it when the house gets all packed up and there's boxes everywhere, and then the movers come in. And then in our case, there was the actual travel involved with the move. So it's all very strange for them. And our vet gave us some magical anti-anxiety pills to give her that would kind of sedate her, but we didn't actually have to use them. She did great because we had tricks up our sleeves to help things go smoothly. So the first thing that Joy taught me was how important it is to remember your physical needs when experiencing change. We were very mindful of this. Now, of course, Joy needed to be kept on her regular eating schedule, just like if we were at home and not traveling. But we also had to give her extra treats, including we got her some of those really big bones that are hollowed out in the middle, and the dog can, try to get the stuff out of the middle of that. And so she had those to work on the drive. They kept her busy, but they also filled up her tummy. She was certainly never hungry. Now, you've probably heard that word before, hangry. And that means, that's when we're hungry and it just seems like everything makes us angry. And we're really not actually angry, but we're just hungry to the point that everything irritates us. Being hungry is no way to navigate change. It's a physical need that needs to be met in order for us to get through whatever we're experiencing. Now, it's very difficult to stay spiritually aligned with our true divine self if we are hungry or thirsty or even tired for that matter. Eating drinking, and sleeping are all physical needs that are easy for us to neglect when we're distracted by whatever challenge or change that's going on in our lives. So we had to make a point to be sure to offer Joy water, give her food and treats, and let her sleep as much as she wanted. We know that sometimes change and life transitions can be exhausting. That dog slept more in that car than we ever expected her to. She needed extra rest to get through this adventure. And if you think about it, it makes sense because so do we, right? For humans, sleep and periods of rest are when we rejuvenate. It's also, when we dream and visualize. It's when we can reset ourselves mentally to a place where we're feeling better about the change we're experiencing. So it's really important, sleep. It's easy to forget the care and feeding of our bodies in the midst of change. So don't knock a good nap, a nutritious meal, or an extra treat during times of change. And for heaven's sake, stay hydrated. Now, another thing that Joy taught me was that it's okay, and sometimes it's even a good idea to be fluid and open to doing things differently when you're navigating change. We are often out of our comfort zone when we're experiencing change. I mean, we were really out of our comfort zone on that trip. Sometimes we're forced to do things differently, but that doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. That's what I learned. Now, here is this kind of weird example that happened on our trip. Now, Joy is crate trained. So from the time we got her and she was 13 weeks old and just a little bitty baby, she has slept in her crate overnight and she does great with it. So what would typically happen every day, this was before our trip, before we moved, is my husband would get up first and let Joy out of her crate, and she would then run into the bedroom at full force, jump up on the bed and attack me. And it was cute and adorable and it was playful, of course, but it was also super annoying, I have to admit. She would jump all over me and be really hyper and chewing on me. She loves to chew on my elbows. I don't know why. And she would lick in my ears and get at my neck and everything. But here's what happened when we were on the trip. From her very first night in the hotel, we would put her to bed in her crate, like always, and she would cry and whimper, and she didn't want to be in it. So my husband, the man who has insisted from day one that a dog will never sleep in our bed, said, well, she's freaking out. We're not going to get any sleep. We've got to just let her sleep with us. So this happened every night on the trip until we finally just gave up using the crate and we let her sleep with us. But the interesting thing is, we noticed that Joy would wake up calmer in the morning. She never attacked us because she was already with us. She didn't get that hyper craziness that a puppy often gets. And even now that we're here and we're in our new home and we've been here, over a month, we're pretty settled. She's back to sleeping in her crate. But in the mornings now, when we let her out of the crate, she will run and jump up on the bed, but she doesn't want to attack us. She just wants to snuggle under the covers and have some quiet time with us again. So it's a very interesting, subtle shift in her behavior. What started as a problem with her crying in her crate and feeling all this anxiety led to a new way of us doing things and better behavior from her. Now, to me, this was spiritual because what seems like a problem to us could be Spirit presenting you with a different way of doing things. It's all in our attitude and our perception. So imagine if you looked at situations in your life like that. What is Spirit maybe trying to tell me? And I'm sure that my husband would get on here and say, Spirit does not want that dog in our bed. I know him. Now, another thing that Joy showed me on this trip was that when you are navigating a big change, it is really important to bring your people with you through your change. Now, Joy had us with her on this long, hot, boring car trip. We were shocked at how well behaved she was. I began to notice that the reason she was well behaved was because she was always looking for us. We were in strange, unfamiliar places for 6 days in a row. We were at highway rest stops and eating at outdoor restaurants we had never been to. We were, stopping at new parks and dog parks and unknown cities. And we were in and out of hotels and hotel rooms, on and on. The only thing that was constant and familiar for Joy was us. We're her people. We were the ones who kept her on track and were reassuring her that she was safe and everything was okay in all these weird places. Watching Joy's behavior of looking for us helped me realize that when we humans are going through transitions or, in the midst of change and turmoil, we need to make sure we are looking for and checking in with our familiar people. They are your guides to keep you on track, just like we kept Joy on track. Now, of course, I'm talking about this from a spiritual perspective. So I mean, checking in with your spiritual community. Just, Judy was mentioning this too. Checking in with your prayer practitioners, your like-minded spiritual friends. These are the people who know the truth for you as you navigate whatever change you're going through. You don't have to bring them with you physically like Joy got to. You can bring their positive energy, their loving thoughts, their prayers, and their good intentions for you. Now, we really did this. I asked everybody to know the truth for us through this move. I was very vocal about it. I asked Dr. Bob and my mastermind group and my prayer partners and practitioner friends that I've known for years. I had everyone I knew praying and treating for our way to be made clear, for our health and our safety, and to just know the truth of our successful, perfect move. I brought my spiritual people with me through this change, and I know it helped. Now, Joy, the dog, really did choose and demonstrate Joy, the spiritual principle, on this trip. So let's talk a little bit about Joy as a spiritual principle. I just read this great article on unity.org about Joy. It was written by Thomas Hopper, and it mentioned that often we think of joy as being the result of a good thing happening. Something great happens in our life, and then we feel joy. But as he explains, it's actually the opposite. Joy is not a result of anything. It's a cause. It's a spiritual principle that we can use whether the conditions in our life are favorable and great, or if they're traumatic and chaotic and difficult. It's in times like those, like times of great change, that we can do more than just put up with them. We can improve them by using the spiritual principle of joy. So what I saw Joy the dog do with the spiritual principle Joy is she was constantly living in the moment. All dogs live in the present moment, and we can learn a lot from that practice. You never see a dog lamenting about its past or worrying about its future. Dogs are always in the now, 100% in the present moment. So on this trip, that is where Joy the dog lived and moved and had her being, in the present moment. For her, living in the moment means having endless, happy curiosity about life. Joy had people to meet everywhere we went. She had pats to get. It's all about getting pats from people. She had kisses to give. She had other dogs to greet and play with. She had grass to smell and new areas to explore everywhere, and on and on. Joy was always joyfully ready to experience whatever was next. So what does this mean for humans? I really think this translates for us as a happy curiosity about our change, whatever life conditions we're experiencing. My husband Gary and I are so curious about this new city we live in. It is so different than what we were used to and where we came from. It's considered a rural community, which includes a way of life that we've never experienced before. And it's kind of cool. We have so much to learn, and we are happily curious about it all. When we make the decision to choose joy, it takes conscious effort. So what does that mean? What can we do to make the effort toward joy? I think it can be as simple as choosing things that lift your vibration, choosing things that keep your spirits high. This means that when you're navigating change, bring your spiritual tools with you, your spiritual practice, because that we know is what keeps our spirits high. I mentioned before how important our physical nourishment is, but our spiritual nourishment matters too. So during a big change, it is not the time to give up your meditation practice or stop your spiritual reading practice or whatever it is you do to connect with spirit. And your natural inclination will be to let those things fall to the wayside because we get really distracted during big changes. Our normal daily schedules were in complete upheaval on that trip. And I had to make a point, no matter how tired I was, to do our nightly readings, no matter how distracted I was, to take time to meditate and pray. I had to make that a priority during this change. So I want to wrap up here by mentioning a famous Greek philosopher named Heraclitus. I had to Google how to say it and do the listening. I hope I'm saying that right. Heraclitus, I think is how you say it. He was known for his thoughts about the unity of life, despite the change that we experience, the fact that life is in flux for humans a lot of the time. He has a famous quote that you've probably heard before about how you never step in the same river twice because, the water is always flowing and changing. But the other quote that's attributed to him that I wanted to bring up, Judy already mentioned, and I love it. The only thing that is constant is change. Now, I want to talk about that quote because I adamantly disagree with it. I believe our philosophy and the science of mind teaches that the only thing that is constant is God, spirit, universe, source, whatever we call it, the one power, one mind, one presence. That is the only thing that is constant. And it's the only thing that is changeless. So it behooves us to remember that in the midst of change. When we commit to bringing our spiritual tools, bringing the truth of our divine joy with us, maybe the most important spiritual tool to bring is our awareness of God's constant, changeless presence. That is our joy. That is our truth. There is no change we can go through, no place we can move to get away from it or be separated from it. So I'll leave you with that today, and I hope you all have a joy-filled day.
In this and every moment, I am safe and all is well. In this and every moment, I am safe and all is well. In this and every moment, I am safe and all is well. In this and every moment, I am safe and all is well. In this and every moment, safe and all is well. I am held, I am whole, I surrender to it all. When I trust and let go, then I know that all is well. All is well. In this and every moment, I am safe and all is well. In this and every moment, I am safe and all is well. I am safe and all is well. In this and every moment, I am safe and all is well. In this and every moment, I am safe and all is well. In this and every moment, I am safe and all is well. I am safe and all is well. I am safe and all is well.